All right. This is my friend, Reverend Princeton Abaraoha, originally from Nigeria, and we have become good friends. And we're here to interview for the KWR, and I'm trusting that we're going to have a great conversation. He lives in Texas, and he's going to tell us about himself. Karibu sana, that is what we say in Swahili. Karibu is welcome.
Thank you.
Brother Princeton. How have you been?
I am wonderful. It is a hot Texas. Welcome to hot Texas.
Yeah, it is really hot. It is indeed very, very hot. So tell us about yourself. I know we have had other interviews that I play on the radio, the KWR, but it's always good to be reminded of who you are. Yes.
Well, my name is Reverend Princeton Abaraoha. I pastor United African Presbyterian Church here in Dallas. I'm a member of the Grace Presbyterian, where we're sitting right now. The headquarters is not far away from here. And also, I am the Associate for African Immigrant Congregational Support for PCUSA. And I'm deployed, which means I live in Texas and work out of here for the national church. And my responsibility is to help the African congregations in leadership training and congregational vitality, to help them to adjust and to grow as a group and an entity in the Presbyterian Church USA, and also grow into what we call a level of financial sustainability.
So when you talk about the national church, which church are we talking about here?
We're talking about Presbyterian Church USA.
And because we do know there are a lot of Presbyterian churches in the USA, so specific of PCUSA.
PCUSA.
The last time we talked, you were not in the African congregation. You are a minister in another congregation. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. And which was that congregation?
I was the pastor of First Presbyterian Church, Midlothian, Texas, which is south of Dallas, where we are right now. And that was a Caucasian church. It was an all-white church. I was there for close to 9.5 years.
Wow, 9 years.
Yes.
How was it serving an American church, largely Caucasian, and you being an African from Nigeria?
I always tease them that it was not an accident that they called me to serve them, because God prepared me earlier in my life. I lived in Oklahoma. I went to college in Oklahoma. And this church was a small rural church in a small town south of Dallas. So I was already prepared because I had a good relationship when I lived in Oklahoma in a small town called Chickasha, where I had relationships with Caucasian Christians. That time I was a Baptist. I was a Southern Baptist. And I did ministry among white people. So it was natural for me to transition into this local small church, and had a wonderful time, wonderful friendship and relationship that developed from that.
And what does that say to you, being able, first of all, having that rural experience in Oklahoma, and then coming over to Texas? How does that say to you? What does that say to you as a minister who is from Africa, and knowing that most of us would be very, very uncomfortable working as ministers in a white church?
I would tell you that most of us, most of our friends probably will not accept that call, will not entertain it. But I didn't have any second thoughts about it because of my personality, of who I am. I don't think it's for everyone. But the answer to that question is that the call of God does not have a gender or color to it. When the Spirit of God calls, the Spirit of God has already prepared the way, regardless of who you are, where you come from. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that even those who might feel uncomfortable of answering the call, but if God is in it and the Spirit of God is in it, in that call process, it would happen without us interjecting the flesh or the human mindset into it.
Thank you. It's but that's really amazing to hear that you see it as that Great Commission.
Yes.
To any African who would be thinking of ministry and who is held back because they've never launched into the deep, as we would say, what would be your take on them, or what would be one thing they can learn from you, how you got into it?
One of the things that as a coach, that I try to impart on my clients who are going through navigating the process of even church plants, starting a church, is that one, you must be convinced that you have been called by God. And it is something that I cannot explain to you or anyone else. No seminary can explain that to you. It's something that you have to know that you know that you know that God has called you. And I've had people say, how can I tell? I said, because you cannot have peace until you have responded to the call of God. I said, if the call of God is in your life, you have no other excuse. You cannot make excuses to say no. The only response you can make is, yes, here I am, Lord. Here I am, Lord. And that drive will keep you up at night. That's when you know that God is in it. That's when you know that God is calling you. And sometimes the road is very, very uncertain. Sometimes it's uncertain. I know that economics comes into picture if you're married and have kids, but if you believe the God that we serve, when he calls, he supplies. When he calls, he provides. When he calls, he protects. When he calls, he sustains. I really believe that.
9 years in a Caucasian congregation, I still want to push that further, is not a short time.
Yeah, no.
That's a very long time.
It is.
And we know there's some even American ministers who have not survived in these congregations for a long time. I guess one of the fears that most of us have is the narrative that has always been there about our race,
yes,
skin color. How did you navigate that into accepting this call?
Again, this is very odd. As you know, the Presbyterian polity says when you have been approved as a candidate, when you have completed your candidacy and have been approved by the presbytery, you don't receive a call until a church calls you. So during my candidacy, I was a pulpit supply. So I went to this church and preached. I was a pulpit supply. And the Sunday I went there, it was like a friendship made in heaven. And they reached out to me. They said, we have openings. Can you fill it for us? I said, yes, I have opening. I think they have like 5 openings, but I only have 3 openings because I've filled the other 2. And the next thing I knew, I got a call from them and a call from the presbytery that this church is interested in me. And I will tell you, I asked the group, the pastor nominating committee, I said, you guys know that I'm black. They laughed. I said, not only that, you know I'm from Africa and that I have a very funny accent. And they laughed. They said, well, we heard you preach and we heard every word you spoke. And I'm going, okay. And we had that interview. It was a wonderful interview process. And they called me, which necessitated my ordination, because you have to be called to be ordained. And I thought I was not going to be ordained for a long time because, again, that fear that no white congregation will call me, even as an associate pastor, not let alone a solo pastor.
So two things that possibly some people may not understand what you mean. Number one, a supply past. We went as a supply what?
Pulpit supply.
Pulpit supply.
Yes.
Maybe try to freshen that out for us, and also the idea of solo pastor and associate pastor.
Well, a pulpit supply is like our presbytery. A presbytery has 141 churches now. That time we had 171 churches, and most of them don't have pastors. And the only way those churches get a preacher to come and preach is the presbytery has a list of available pastors, ordained pastors, who can preach, or even elders who can preach. And those churches that have no pastor will call the presbytery, and the presbytery will send that list to them, and some of them will call. The gentleman who called me, this is a good story. He said, I could not pronounce your name, so you were the last person I called. He said, I called everybody and nobody was available. Then he called the presbytery and said, there is one guy, I can't find anybody, but there's one guy that I can't pronounce his last name, but his first name is Princeton. So the person he talked to in presbytery said, you better call him, because you will like him. That's what, and he did. And he called me and he told me that story. I said, well, where are you? And he told me, I said, I'm in Arlington. And he said, okay, Midlothian is not too far. You can get here. I said, well, just give me the address. I'll be there. I'm open on Sunday, so I'll see you. I went by myself. I usually do that. I didn't go with my family. I'll go by myself first to get the temperature of
absolutely.
to make sure that it is the acceptance is there generally, just not one person.
Yeah.
And it was overwhelming, the welcome I received, and the joy to receive me as their pulpit supply. So when they asked me to fill the other Sundays, I did that with joy.
Okay.
Because we all are human beings. You go to a place where you are accepted.
Yeah.
And I felt that acceptance the first time I preached there. So that's what pulpit supply is available pastors. It's mainly filled up with retired pastors, or pastors who are in transition, or seminary students who just finished seminary looking for a call, will be on that list to fill pulpits of churches that don't have pastors.
Okay. And solo, you did mention about solo pastor and associate.
Associate pastor is a pastor to a church that already has a senior pastor, and the church can afford an associate pastor.
Like an assistant
pastor with a different job description. And so the big churches have like 3 or 4 associate pastors with different functions, and that's what associate pastor is. And some Africans or some black people have had the privilege of becoming associate pastors in big churches to fill positions of community ministries, community affairs ministries, or intercultural or multicultural ministries in some big churches, and that's a position that some of us feel, and it's not a lot of them out there.
Okay,
it's not much.
Yeah. So this was your first call in PCUSA.
In PCUSA.
Okay, the one in Midlothian.
Midlothian.
Okay, and but before that, you were still a minister.
Yes, before,
but within the Baptist tradition.
Yes. By then, I was a Southern Baptist ordained pastor.
Okay.
From Oklahoma, I was ordained at First Baptist Church in Chickasha, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And that time, I was doing student ministries as well. I just graduated, was in graduate school, and I left Oklahoma and moved to Texas. And because what we're talking about, not a lot of white churches will entertain hiring a black person.
Yeah.
Let alone an African with an accent.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of our brethren joined the Black National Baptist churches. Some of them didn't have opportunity to pastor because they were filled up. the black churches have long tenures. Their pastors stay for a long time.
Okay.
And then under them are a line of chain of assistant pastors waiting.
Oh,
So you a foreigner, an African, has no chance.
You'll be like the last one in the line.
Yeah. So is to wait that line.
Yeah.
At least for us, or those of us who were called into the ministry in the 70s in this country, that was the experience. But things began to change.
Oh, okay.
Over the years. So from the 80s. I remember conversations we had with the Texas Baptist Convention, asking them to help us finance us Africans to have our own ministry, like we're doing now. In the
like a caucus or
no, not even a caucus. No, just to give us permission to form congregation. Because all of a sudden after the end of the 70s, the African population began to grow. Began to grow. For us from Nigeria, what we had in the 70s was the African Christian Fellowship. We didn't think, it wasn't in our vision to have a church. We wanted something for our own, We'll be growing, and we wanted where we can sing gospel songs that we sang back home.
Yeah.
And read and interpret scripture the way we read and interpret back home. Yeah. So the African Christian Fellowship became that for us. And I can tell you for certain that it was through that a lot of the African churches began to form here in the United States. African Christian Fellowship. We started here in Dallas with the Nigerian Christian Fellowship first, and then African Christian Fellowship. And then all of a sudden, in the late 80s, folks now had the boldness to start to form. And by this time, I've left the Baptist and we become
Presbyterian.
Interdenominational.
Oh, okay.
Because it was a lot of us Christians that just got together, Catholic, Anglican, Assemblies of God. That's what made up the African Christian Fellowship. And then when we started forming fellowship as a church, that's the same group that formed. You see?
Now that formed this larger church.
Yes.
Community church.
Community church, yes.
Was it an interdenominational?
It was interdenominational. I remember the first one we formed was called the Living Word Bible Church here in Dallas.
For Nigerians or for everybody?
Oh, we had Cameroonians, we had Sierra Leoneans, we had all kind of, it was till the 90s, late 80s and 90s that Africans begin to grow in population. That is where you see a large number of Nigerians, you see Cameroonians, you see Kenyans. Those days, it used to be just when you see 50 Africans, as like 12 countries in that 50 people. But the population just blossomed.
Wow.
And then the visa lottery thing.
DV lottery.
The DV lottery helped to explode the immigration process and population of Africans here. All of a sudden, you begin now to hear about a Nigerian church. A Kenya church. That was really in the early 2000s.
In the 90s?
The 90s, late 90s.
Oh, wow.
Late 90s, yes.
So the African church generally is a very young movement in the United States.
Yes.
Okay.
My understanding.
Okay. Now, I know in the last conversation that we had, you did talk about that transition from the Baptist Convention to PCUSA. How was that transition to you?
Well,
because even theologically it would have to be achieved, right?
Well, my transition really went from the Southern Baptist fundamentalist, as far as my thinking, looking back now, to non-denominational. That was open to band, playing a band in the church. It wasn't long ago, that the Baptists will not allow a praise and worship in the church. Oh, yes. At least the Southern Baptists. It's the reading of the singing of those hymns. They're great hymns. I still love them today.
They're great hymns. Hymns. Absolutely.
But praise and worship,
no.
The pastor can be fired for that. The board of deacons will get you fired in the early 70s or 80s. If you talk about, but to watch even the Baptist church transitioned into that. But it was easy for us, being foreigners, where we formed our own group, like the African Christian Fellowship. We clap hand, and then all of a sudden, people back home moved faster than we did here in the States. They began to use instruments back home than we did here. And when people began to come from home, some of them
now bringing in
were praise and worship leaders.
They're bringing
They bring the bands and all that. And it was a fresh of breath air for us. So that's what happened in the interdenominational transition group that we had. So moving from that, I started to pastor many Nigerians. Then I had an opportunity to pastor a multicultural church. There was a combination of African, Filipinos.
Before the PCUSA
Before the PCUSA.
Oh, wow.
And it happened that they were meeting in a PCUSA church.
Okay.
They were nesting at Westminster Presbyterian Church, Dallas.
Okay.
So I'm an outgoing person. So it was natural that when we got there and felt welcomed, they already formed a congregation, but there was some conflict that happened. They brought a minister from Philippines who kind of didn't last, who split the congregation, took some people with her.
The multicultural
church. The ones that were left, I ran into one of their leaders who now invited me. I said, she heard me. So I officiated a wedding, and she heard me. And she said, "Do you pastor a church now?" I said, "No, I'm in transition." She said, "Would you come and pastor us?" I said, "Who are you?" And she told me, and she said, we meet at the Presbyterian Church. I said, what's Presbyterian? Because I never heard of Presbyterian.
Oh, yeah?
No.
Oh,
never,
wow.
No, I didn't know what it was. And then I went and researched, and I said, okay. And she insisted for 3 months. So I went to meet the congregation, but I met the host church as well. We were so embraced and welcomed and accepted. I went, oh my goodness, this is different. So being a good Baptist, my wife and kids, we began to go to Sunday school class.
Now in the Presbyterian
Church, yes.
Yeah.
In that Sunday school class, they were studying one of the Presbyterian documents called the Institute by John Calvin. And I remember sitting in that class going, that's what I believe.
Wow.
I was going, I've always believed that. And then in my head, being a good Baptist, I was going, oh, these guys are good Christians. They're good Christians. So I began to ask the pastor questions. And we became friends. And I asked him, I said, can you guys accept my ordination in the Baptist? He said, I've been waiting for you to ask. So he invited me to what I now know is the session where I shared my faith story, and the vote was unanimous for them to sponsor me as an inquirer.
Oh, wow.
And it was a natural transition, but my wife had a hard time. She thought it was a dull worship. She saw the service was so dull. I said,
"Why you are liking it?"
Well, I was liking it because I liked, I was liking the teaching. I was liking the theology. Yes. Because I wasn't a big church goer when I became a Christian. When I became a Christian, I read the scriptures. I became a student of the scriptures. So anywhere the scripture is preached. And one thing that happened in my conversion, especially knowing what God did in my life, if God could save, if God could accept somebody like me who went from a child soldier, committed a lot of atrocities, and God forgave me, it was like a day and night. I knew that I know that God has forgiven me and has replaced what my mother called my heart of stone with a heart of flesh. I will weep at the drop of a hat. That was not me before. But when I saw that change, this God, the God of the scriptures and the God of grace, was more pronounced with the Presbyterian Church. than the Baptist experience was more judgmental.
Yeah.
Came from a place of legalism.
Okay.
There was too legalistic polity in the Baptist deal. But that was all I knew, so I made the good of it.
Okay.
But I learned a lot from it.
Okay.
I would go to a lot of functions and preach, and people would say, "Oh, you are a good Baptist."
Okay.
they said that's good.
You took their cue.
Yeah, because I would always hear, "Oh, the Baptists have not left you yet.
Yeah.
You still got it." But so that was some good things that came from that experience. But it was the God of grace that the Presbyterian polity and theology. I was telling my and then when I went to seminary, I went to SMU. I remember my theology class 101. The thing that captured me was the reformed concept of God.
Okay.
That God is the one that loved the world, that he created something that is good, that the world that God created is good. That's where every reformed person comes.
Yeah.
Is that God created us good.
Good, yeah.
Regardless of what we do, we're still good before God.
Yes.
Oh, that spoke to this sinful sinner.
It has spoken to me for years.
I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's the best thing to have received, as a Christian.
I heard it well.
Coming from a tradition where, wow, this is not good. This is
terrible.
Up.
Yeah, this is messed up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when we did that institute, I saw where it came from. But I don't think that's what Calvin was saying.
No.
Calvin was saying, no, what God made is good.
Yeah.
But we literally became bad.
Yeah, I know.
Because of our nature.
Yeah.
And that's all he was saying. But the Baptists took that and ran. That were just terrible and terrible. Yeah. And that's what some of us heard all our lives.
Oh, yeah.
But if you come from the Reformed concept where you see the God in Jesus Christ, who walked the street of Palestine, healing the sick, raising the dead, and giving the blind their sight, who went around doing good. That's what the scripture said. Went around doing it. And then one thing again in that theology class, it says, if anything you're doing in ministry, in your Christianity and in your faith is not for the common good, then you are not in line with God's gospel.
Yeah.
And that hold of me.
Common good.
It has got to be for the common good of your context, of the society where you find yourself. Are you doing good? Are you doing good? Because that's God's desire. The good God who created a world that is good desires for us to do good.
That's right. So now, wow, that's an amazing story, my brother. And for our viewers who may not have heard that testimony that Princeton Abaraoha is talking about, his childhood testimony, I would invite you to search that testimony on an interview we held about 3 years ago on a child soldier turned into a soldier for Christ.
Amen.
It is on KWR radio YouTube channel, and we also play it once in a while on our radio. Now, my brother, thinking about now several things, you have spoken about several things, starting off in Oklahoma, the rural church, that community and how it embraced you and your move. Then there is the multicultural background, and again now the Presbyterian setup, working for a white congregation. So has that continued informing who you are as a ministry, both being able to work with people of other, cultures.
Yes.
At the same time, being able to create a multicultural space, and at the same time, even leading a congregation that is not Nigerian.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. The gift that we as Africans bring is what I call the multicultural gift that God gave us as Africans. Is like you come to Nigeria, we have the 3 major tribes, but in those 3, the Igbo, Hausa, and the Yoruba, but even within that is also another context of multi-tribal.
Tribal, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And we grew up in that diversity. I believe that diversity really informed who we have become
Okay.
in adapting into this larger diversity that we found ourselves like in the United States.
Yeah.
It is something that we take for granted even as Africans,
Yeah.
that we don't think about it until we encounter racism,
Yeah.
or we encounter prejudice,
Yeah.
from somebody, an ignorant person.
Yeah.
And some of us are taken aback. I have that joke that I always say, I didn't know I was black
Yeah.
till I came to America.
That's right.
I was an African.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never introduced myself as a black person
Yeah.
until I came to America.
That's right.
I was an African,
Yeah.
a proud African,
Yeah.
and then a Nigerian.
Yeah.
And then when you come in Nigerian context, then an Igbo.
An Igbo, yeah.
But the Igbo never shows
Yeah.
up.
And well accepted in all these contexts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's always, it's funny. It's funny that when you meet an African, he's an African.
Yeah.
Until now you dig deeper.
Yeah.
To find out which country they are from.
Yeah, they're from.
And that's that. But the shift in identity is the only shock that some of us experience. But it still did not inform anything of us. It's like we accepted it. Okay, I guess this is the way America functions.
Yeah.
America functions on the color of the skin.
Yeah.
And not on who you are.
Who you are, yeah. Not on marriage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Some of us to adapt into the system here.
Okay.
At least in the university level.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a couple of friends the other day, and we were talking about some of our students, our kids who are in China, in remote areas of the world, attending universities, speak the languages fluently, learn it and speak it fluently. Incredible.
It is.
Strength it takes for one to do that.
Yeah.
And some of them is 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah. There's a girl I follow from Uganda, married to a Chinese,
Imagine
and
that.
she speaks fluently, and you're like, she's like in rural Uganda.
Yes.
Yeah, so I hear but she's in China.
Yes.
Doing a lot of good things. Yeah.
It's incredible. It's incredible. So that helps to inform a lot of our successes. But does it happen for all of us?
Yeah.
No. A lot of us, the shock of the transition coming to this culture takes some of us back.
Okay.
And some of us struggle with it.
Okay.
But a lot of us have made strides in this country.
That.
Yeah.
So now you have made that move. Now towards your later years, you're moving back to an African context. How is that? Because now you are in the African, what is it called again?
At the United African Presbyterian Church.
Presbyterian,
Yeah. My wife will always tease me.
Yeah.
It says the joke behind my back is that I'm the white man with a black skin.
Why is that?
It's because I still struggle about the time thing.
Okay.
I have, at least in Dallas, they know me. If you invite me for a function and tell me that it's 7 o'clock,
I'll be there.
I'll be there at 6:30. Okay. I have a gentleman. This is a true story.
Yeah.
I respect him so much. He's one of these wealthy Nigerians.
Yeah.
It says 7 o'clock. And he lives in this expensive neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I got there, no light in his house, 6:30. And I was there at 6:30, 7 o'clock, nobody. I had to go park far away because I didn't want the neighbors to call the police that this black man is in the car, So as all of a sudden, 7:30, 7:45, a truck drives into his address. And then the house light came on. I said, okay. Somebody came in, but I never knew that he drove a truck. I didn't know he drove a truck. All of a sudden, a car came in, and he was the one driving the car. So he came. So I drove up. He saw me. He said, "Rev, I knew. I told my wife, "You're a white man, that you will show up on time." So I said, "What do you mean I'm a white man?" I said, "If you know you're not going to be here at 7:00,
Why did you then tell
why
me
did
to
you
come
tell
here?
me? You should have whispered in my ear."
Yeah, when I say
Reverend,
7:00, I mean 9.
If you have other African pastors
Yeah.
who come 2 hours late, 1 hour late, I'm not that.
You're not that.
At least you know that.
Yeah.
So I use that story to describe both the training and the adaptation that has happened in my life living here in the United States. Is that coming back to an African context? Is that the hardest thing is the African time thing.
Okay.
And the laxity, the way we're too relaxed.
Yeah, very.
In our context.
Yeah, somebody told me that we create time. We don't keep time.
So that is the toughest transition. But it was easy because most of these people, I'm known in Dallas as the community pastor.
Okay.
I officiate a lot of things in town for a lot of our people who don't go to church.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people like to go to white church. They sneak in, they sneak out. And then when something happens in their life, the church, some of them who are like Catholic, the priest will say, "Well, I've seen you in the church, but you're not a member." Yeah. But he's been coming for 2 years. 2 years. He's been coming for 5 years. Yeah. So they turn to pastors like me who are open-minded, who would officiate baptism or even funeral services for their family members. Because of that, I'm known in the community. Okay. And so it was easy for me to transition, but it's just the logistics of church functioning. Yeah. Church logistics. Yeah. It was the hardest transition to get used to.
Now. Okay. Go ahead.
No. I still struggle with it.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Service, you say service begin at 11:00.
Yeah, and then
you have only 1/3 of the church present. Yeah. And then by the time you 30 minutes into the service, you look up, the whole place is packed full.
Yeah. You go, they'll still complain that you're taking too long to preach. Anyway, as we move, because I'm seeing a thread that I want to follow all the way through, and so now you've talked about being a community person. And I know when we were having lunch today, you did mention that you literally, anybody who wants anything, particularly within the presbytery, anything to do with Africans or the community, they come to you. Can you talk to us about that and how that has come, that you're such connected to people and people know that you're connected to resources?
Again, folks will tell me there's nothing that's an accident. It's ordered by God. Yeah. But having been out there serving the community, you come in contact with people. And something that happened that has helped me is that I've always been bivocational.
Which means?
Which means I've always had, if not a business of my own that serves the community, I've always worked in a company where I'm out there meeting people. So
while you're still a pastor.
While I'm still a pastor. So the connection to the community. And it started, and I've been here for a long time. Yeah. So the longevity has something to do
with it,
with the amount of people I know. Okay. Both Cameroonians and both Kenyans and both Togolese, name it. Is that I've been here for a long time and has participated. Again, coming back to that thing we said, we are Africans first. Yeah. And we say it carelessly, but it's true. Because once you meet an African, it's like you meet a brother. Yeah. And that connection is intact. It stays for a long time. And once you know one African, you've known others. Sure. Okay. We had breakfast today, and the gentleman who served us is from Nicaragua. Okay. But he worked with the Nigerians.
Oh, okay.
And it's so amazing how he can move from an Igbo accent to a Yoruba accent, with ease, because he befriended those people. And that's the thing about us, is that we see ourselves as a global community, as a global citizen.
Which happened to us today when we were having lunch.
Yes.
Even though it did not happen at the language level, it did happen, this Ethiopian walking to us and asking, are you African?
Yes. Immediately he confirmed that we're African. He said, I'm from Ethiopia. So we introduced ourselves. He said, I'm from Kenya, and I said, I'm from Nigeria, and he greeted us. And he walked off. And he said, fufu, which is Nigerian food. You know, so that's the thing. That's the thing, is that I think it's because I've been here that long. And then when I got involved with the Presbyterian Church, through the Presbytery, I got involved with the multicultural ministries of the PCUSA. And through that, I came to know a lot of the Africans in the Presbyterian Church as well, which made this job that I'm doing now easier. Is that I got to know people. My presbytery made it a point of duty that for any evangelism conference, a church development conference, they will sponsor me to attend. And there you will meet other immigrants. And that's where friendships were developed.
We are going to take a commercial break. And when we come back, we will talk more about now that new position that you're talking about, the job that you're outside of the church, outside of the pastor.
This is George Washiri, Optiven Real Estate, and we are very excited offering you lifestyle of opulence where Vipingo. The property is only 2.5 kilometers off the road that is being duoed, and only 4.5 kilometers from the ocean. We are doing all these roads by compacted manam roads. We shall plant trees around here. The entire property, we are doing perimeter wall. We are developing a fantastic clubhouse, swimming pool, and this is the best gated community, the entire coastal region. What are you waiting for? Just call us on 0790 300 300.
So welcome back. My guest today is Reverend Princeton Abaraoha, who is a good friend of mine, originally from Nigeria, but have lived in this country for a very long time. He has served as a minister, as we have heard, and I have come to know him as a dear brother. And we are here in Texas, Dallas. We had come for a conference, and we got an opportunity to do this interview, and I thank you very much. So, brother, when we were before we went for the break, you did, in passing, talked about what you're doing today and how that is informed by all that journey. What is it that you're doing today?
I am what's called the Associate for the African Immigrant Congregational Support for the PCUSA. My office serves as the resource center for all the African fellowships that are within the PCUSA church, larger church. And I resource African churches that nest. That means they are using a space in a Presbyterian church somewhere here in the United States. And usually I'm in the beginning of most of those relationships. Before I took that job in 2017, about 65 fellowships were already nesting across the country. And since then, we've grown up to 75. And I really believe we are more. The point is that some Africans like to be quiet. When they get a space in a white church, they don't want to make a lot of noise about it. But what helps for me is that after a couple of years, there's a relationship that develops between the host church and the nesting church. And then usually the African church now will want to know more about the Presbyterian church, and they'll call my office because we don't know how to answer some of these questions. Can you help us? And that's where I come in. And it's always life-giving to see. When they see me, it's like one of us. And they go, oh, you in that office? I said, yes. And I said, how can we help? And I usually do what's called cultural interpretation. because sometimes the language barriers create some communication difficulties.
Yeah.
And the way you and I speak English sometimes is different from the way the Americans hear English.
Yeah.
And when some of our siblings, African congregations, don't 100% of them don't speak English. They speak French, or they speak Swahili. And then when we run into the West Indies, you run into those who speak Portuguese or Spanish, or Creole.
Yeah.
So my job is to help what we call the mid councils, which is the presbyteries, that houses number of churches where these churches now have relationship with Africans. Is to come in and help. For the past year and a half now, my office has been expanded with some financial resources where we can help some of our people financially with some grants.
So you are resourcing both the Americans and the Africans.
Yes.
So to bring the connection, the bridge.
Yes.
You are the bridge.
I'm the bridge.
You're literally
Yes.
the bridge. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Oh, cool. And what is the goal?
Well, the goal in my job description, when I was hired, part of it is to resource leadership training for the African clergy and clergy women and lay leaders. Some of us who are Presbyterians back home are coming with a different polity than the polity that is practiced here, PCUSA. And sometimes the local churches that host African churches struggle on how to do that crossover, if you say, to help the African church or the immigrant church to understand the PCUSA polity. My office helps to bridge that gap, that communication gap of interpretation.
All right, and resourcing financially.
Resources.
That's what you have mentioned. But is it a lot of money, or just to help you get by? The financial support?
Well, it's better than what it has been. It's better than what it has been.
Yeah.
But there are different avenues of financial resources in the Presbyterian Church. And like everything else that is organized, one of the things that I learned when I became Presbyterian that I was reminded of a lot of times is that, Princeton, you need to know that we Presbyterians do things decently and in order.
Yes.
And
decently and in order.
And I'm going to say, what in the world is that? but I come to learn that there are ways of doing things.
Yeah, there are ways of
doing things. And then if you're new in a place, is to kind of learn those ways.
Yes.
And that's what my office does, is to help our people to learn those ways and to know that my office cannot help you with all your financial needs, but I can help you source it in another department. And we have the 1001 worshiping communities, and which I've studied, and I can see an African congregation that is struggling financially and struggling growth-wise. They're struggling as far as vitality is concerned, and I'm doing that right now with 3 congregations, recommending to them, to the lead pastor of that African community and the host pastor, and say, these folks now are in a place where they can apply for the 1001 grant. It will help you, the host church, to alleviate some of the responsibilities you've been bearing to try to help them, because you see their needs and you can't solve it all. This source of 1001 approach can help, at least for the first 3 years. And then there are other grants like the PDA can help, also helps the Presbyterian Disaster Agencies, the PDA, can also help the refugee communities. It's not a lot of money, but it's better than what they have right now. So, and then you have the Presbyterian Foundation. Have their own programs that they also help. Those are the areas that my office now can help. Reach out to my colleagues in those areas.
Yeah, so you get to travel a lot throughout the country.
Yes.
Okay. You have talked about 75 as the number, and also said that there could be more people who are still there. They just don't want to come out. If anybody was listening or watching this, what would you say to those that are still under there who do not want to step up?
I would say step up or call my office. You can reach me at 214-251-9830, 214-251-9830, and ask me any questions that you have. And if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer for you. And probably I've been where you are, or I have walked someone else, another group that was where you are, and have helped them process to where they are today. You have to be brave. Another thing, in the African community, it is not a lot. But in other immigrant communities, it's a lot. The undocumented people. I come to find out that some of our people also are in that category.
Yeah,
that is one of
the reasons.
It's not the total reason for the Africans.
But it could be one of.
It's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
And that they don't want to. They love the fellowship community, the Christian community that they are developing.
Yeah.
That they have, it fills and fulfills their spiritual needs.
Yes.
They don't want to,
but they don't
want to entangle it now with the politics of immigration, or even the government.
Yeah.
So it's better for them to stay where they are.
Yeah. And are there other reasons why they would not want to step up? I know you have talked about two. You have talked about this one now, about immigration and the protectiveness.
Another is just fear of launching out.
Okay.
I've discovered that's what it is.
What is that? What do you mean by fear?
The difference in culture.
Okay.
The difference in culture. And what I call the gatekeepers mentality of host denominations like ours. It's not something that is mean-spirited. No, it's like I said, things are done decently in order. There is a way, and we're fighting through it. Like this year's General Assembly, there's a group that brought an overture to see how to lighten the burden of accepting immigrant communities into the fold. You'll be surprised to know that out of that 75, it will be like only 10 or 12 that have voting right in our Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
Because the condition for you to have a voting right, you have to be chartered.
Yeah.
And a lot of our churches are fellowship.
Yeah.
You see, so not only that those who are not comfortable yet to join, are afraid to join, they see these things as bumps on the way that is unnecessary for their spiritual growth.
Is there another reason you may think about?
No, and this is more for the immigrants, not only the Africans. Is the academic requirement.
Okay.
For the Presbyterians are really academic people.
Yeah.
They like education.
Yeah.
So for you to be an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church, you have to go to seminary, and seminary is master's is a graduate work. That means you have to have an undergraduate degree, and most of our pastors came from Africa and don't have that level of education. That's probably might be another thing that will keep some of them to be comfortable where they are.
I know we have really gone into our time, but I still have a few things that I would want us to talk about. And one of them that I have experienced as a minister is on real estate. That majority of us don't have our own space, and even the thinking. I don't know how some people are doing it, because there's some people who've been able to acquire property here in the United States for their congregation. Is that a big challenge to the African congregation, or is it a few of us?
It is a big challenge.
Okay.
It's funny that you've asked me that question 2 or 3 times, and I forgot it. The matter of space is the African deal. The Africans start church like the Acts of Apostles Church.
Yeah.
We started from the apartment.
Yeah.
And I always hear this story. We are about to be kicked out of our apartment complex.
Yeah.
Because every Friday evening when we meet, or Sunday afternoon, we have more cars in our parking lot, and people are complaining.
Yeah.
Can you help us find a place?
Yeah.
Can you help us find a place? And that's the hole that the Presbyterian Church have filled for a lot of African congregations, and some of them not even Presbyterians.
Yeah.
And the Presbyterian Church PCUSA has been so open-minded and what's the word I'm looking for? Generous. Mm-hmm. So generous in their openness to open the door for African communities. But in the area of sustainability, finding their own place is something that our people have not gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But we have a few.
Okay. Yeah.
I have 1 or 2 examples in Dallas.
Yeah.
Who are not Presbyterians.
Okay.
Who have a group of men in their church.
Yeah.
Who got together, bought a building.
Okay.
Bought a building, changed the structure, made it comfortable. Mm-hmm. It is incredible edifice.
Yeah.
And they worship there.
Okay.
And they use it. So yes. What the Southern Baptists have done was the Southern Baptists helped the African churches, at least the Texas Baptists.
Yeah.
My 2 Nigerian pastors, Baptist pastors, the Texas Baptist Foundation helped them get their building.
Okay.
One is not too far from here. Yeah. As a matter of fact, incredible. And then people, they've been doing good. Yeah. I keep telling people, I think when you challenge our people, they can step up to the plate. Yeah. The reason why is that the leaders have not ventured to take the risk.
Okay. I hear you. There are some people who say that people should not be spending their money in purchasing real estate because of the burden that they're seeing with the old congregations that are American and have been here for years. And there are those who say, no, we need a space of our own. What would you say about that dichotomy of?
Well, my advice is not only going to buy the building for having the building. How are you going to use that building? You have to make that building to be self-sustainable. Okay. You have to study what is going on with the white churches that are dying and cannot spending their endowment just to sustain the building until the last person dies, and then they sell the building. Yeah. I said, that's the fear of those who don't want to purchase. Okay. But I can tell you, my wife and I just came from Houston, where there was a wedding of one of our young girls here who married a gentleman. Okay. And it was an Anglican church. Okay. All Nigerians.
Owned by a Nigerian?
They built that church. It looks like a cathedral.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Okay. And guess what? They added an activity building behind them. Okay. I have attended another wedding at that building. And the gentleman who's a priest there whispered to me, said, that building is busy every weekend.
Wow.
And even on Thursday.
They are renting it out? Or?
Renting it out.
Oh, wow. So there is income coming in.
There's income coming in.
Okay.
And it's not only to Africans.
Yeah.
It's to the city of Dallas.
Dallas.
It's in the area of Houston.
Yeah.
It's Houston, called Sugarland.
Yeah.
You know, imagine that. Imagine that's because guess what? They did the study.
Yeah.
They found out a lot of the Presbyterian Church, a lot of the Methodist churches.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the church network.
Okay.
And we had a convention in North Carolina.
Okay.
I just came back from North Carolina 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But one of what the church network was talking about is living in the liminal space. That was the topic of that. And they were talking about churches who've gone through that liminal space, which is the transition time, that place of wilderness, of rethinking, where this downtown church sold part of their property and built a low-income housing in partnership with the city.
Wow.
Not only they built that housing, they built office space. Office spaces where people came, people are renting office space. This is a high rise. What? In Charlotte.
Wow.
Incredible.
Africans?
No. This is a white church.
Oh, white church.
A white church. So I'm using it as an example.
As an example, yes.
And I said, I don't know whether this Anglican church saw that or read about it. But it's a concept that is new now, even for the dying white church. Is how can you reinvent yourself? So for those of us who don't even own our own property, is to think into that, not only to build a 4-wall square to worship only Sunday, and come once a Sunday. Is how can you do it and make it a multi-purpose building that would make it self-sustaining.
And that has been our focus. We're trying to see if we can come up with a multicultural center.
Yes.
Now, in the interest of time, talk a little bit about APLA.
APLA is African Presbyterian Leaders Alliance. When I took this job, it was part-time. It was for me to help the office, the Racial Equity and Women's Intercultural Ministries, which is a department of Presbyterian Mission Agency in the PCUSA, is to help them organize the Africans. Because there was a transition in leadership at one time at the PCUSA, and it necessitated for the office, the African office, to be closed. So when I was invited to resuscitate the African office, the needs that I discovered that was there was overwhelming. And that informed the zeal with which I did my job. I said, no, this is a great opportunity for ministry. I can't let it down. So I put my soul into it and started to connect with our African people. I forgot what your question was.
APLA. You're talking about APLA.
Yes. So the more I looked into it, the more I found out that we were not represented at the table. And what I mean at the table is that we don't count. They know we exist. I found out that the other communities have a representative body that represented their constituencies. You have the Native American, you have the Middle East, you have the Black
African American.
The Black caucus, was adopted in the 60s, I believe, and I've been told since then that the language in that adoption has a caucus. They call them caucuses. They have the Spanish, they have the Asian, they have the Korean.
Yeah.
I found out the Korean don't even have a caucus.
Okay.
But they have a presbytery.
Oh, wow.
Which is even better.
Better, yeah, absolutely. So they have a negotiating.
So I began to ask questions. I began to ask serious questions. So why are the Africans not recognized? And everybody tell me, we don't know why. You ought to. So being a networker, I began to now create a network. And I learned how to do that a long time ago. If you want to achieve something, you create a network of those who speak on your behalf.
Oh.
And I created a network of folks at the OGA who began to point me to go to the right. They sent me to the legal department. And the legal department said, well, it was a mandate of the GA. It has to take the mandate of the GA to make you guys a caucus. But the last caucus that was formed says that the agreement that was voted and agreed was that there would not be another caucus.
Oh, wow.
But you can form an organization that can be an akin to a caucus.
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'll take that.
Okay.
And then I galvanized some leaders among us.
Okay.
And I said, this is where we are.
Yeah.
This is the role we can play.
Yeah.
And they all jumped at it.
Yeah.
And we established APLA. And we looked for a name that would fit. I said, and the issue of leadership was important for me and for most of us. We agreed that leaders included both our lay people.
Yeah.
It cannot be only the clergy.
The clergy.
So they jumped on it, they accepted, and we moved. We went through the different committees that we needed to go to that would push us. Right now, the moderator of APLA sits at the table where the other caucuses sit with the state clerk.
Yeah.
I think they meet once a month or every other month.
And the moderator is?
Reverend Bobby Musengwe.
Yes. The one is from South Africa.
South Africa.
Yeah, in Florida.
In Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a pastor of Maxima Presbyterian Church in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for our friends who are out there and you're Presbyterian, you've never heard about APLA or you don't know what it is, reach out to our friend and you will get connected to APLA. It's a good connection. It's a good alliance. I'm coming to enjoy it myself. So do you have a last word?
Oh, well, I will say what I always say in my inner circle with some of my colleagues. The African ministry is here to stay in the Presbyterian Church USA. I think we have a place and friendship and colleagues and brotherhood with the PCUSA if only you be willing to be a friend. As they're saying that if you want a friend, be a friend first. So the Presbyterians are here before we came. So reach out a hand of friendship. I believe you get one back.
Well, thank you very much. I just had a friend who reminded me that your network is your net worth.
Yes.
The people you know and whom you work with.
I like
and
that.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
And I thank you so much again, my brother.
Thank you.
I know it has taken you a tremendous effort to be here, being a very busy man, working for the two offices. You are three, actually. Your home, your church, and also for the denomination.
Yes.
And it's always a pleasure to have an interview with you. And I look forward to many. We were hoping to have Martin to join us.
Yes.
But hopefully he'll join us next time when I'm in Dallas or when we are in our meeting.
Yes.
So APLA is meeting where next time? Not yet.
Not yet. It's October. It's in October.
Okay.
It's going to be a retreat. They're still talking about this venue.
Okay.
Yes.
So most likely it might be here, it might be in Atlanta, it might be in any other place, but be on the lookout and you will surely enjoy the fellowship of the African brethren.
Yes.
People from all over Africa. So once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And God bless.
Thank you. Welcome to Texas.
All right. Thank you.